notice. So
You did? See, I didn't get anything.
I just got notified you're going live.
All right, well, good deal. Then that means we're live. Hello, YouTube. Welcome. This is Bub's Comics here with the No Faces comic chat. Let me see. I still can't get it on mine, so something's up with mine. But in any case, we are here tonight. We are the anybody remember?
Gatefold Greats.
The Gatefold Greats. What do you think of that, DS?
I like it. Short, concise. It's phenomenally alliterative. Great.
Good deal. What about you, Roger? You take any exception to it, or do you like it, or what?
No, I agree. I like the conciseness of it, and it hits obviously the Gatefold is one of the, like you said, one of those extra things that they often do to try to sell you the comic besides the story. And Greats, well, I think that's perhaps a little of a hyperbole, but we're getting there.
Oh no, there's not even a shred of hubris in that. That is 100% accurate, as voted on by the people. So that's yeah, for sure. And we already have a few people trickling into the chat. We're up to 10 already. We got the Comic Collector, says he was first. We'll have to take his word on that. We got Knights of Old. We got Broke Cause of Comics. I like his weekly question or so to the community, you know. Broke Cause of Comics does like a question or so that he asks. It's usually like a 2 or 3 minute video. DS, you'd love it. You love those tiny little videos, right?
I do.
I just subbed to you, Broke Cause of Comics. I didn't know about your channel.
Yeah, I like the short videos, really short ones, and then I like the really long ones because both of those serve purposes in my life. One of which is I hardly ever have any time, so a short one I can quick do. And if I'm doing something, I can put something long on and just have it in the background. That works too. But I'm way behind. I can't keep up. There's just too much good stuff out there, man.
Well, I purposely put a video out today that was about 6 minutes, and I was trying my best to keep it under 5, and just so that DS could squeeze my video in.
Well, I watched the first couple minutes, and then I got bored, and I had to like scroll through to the end. I saw the Planet Comics, and I'm like, good, 3-minute video, done deal.
Oh man, I can't get it. I can't even say hello YouTube in 3 minutes. So
yeah, it was like right after you said that is when I started jumping ahead.
Oh, great. We also have Rayman the Silencer Man. He had a nice big flea market haul.
As usual.
Yes, it was really cool. He had a cool like a Superman that had been sun faded from inside of a frame, and I thought it had great color to it. You know, if he hadn't said anything, I wouldn't have known.
I thought that color scheme worked actually, but
yeah, it looked pretty good. So catch that out. Area 51 is here as well. Mike did an awesome and I'm tempted to say that it's not a pinball marquee. It's like an arcade marquee that the very top of an arcade, you know, where it just basically says the title will have a couple of characters. And he had a couple of those that he had picked up. I think he said at a shop, right? Somebody had brought him in on trade or something. And
I picked them up at his comic shop up Judy and
Dave and Judy's. So he built some cabinets for those kind of like light boxes to display them and turn them on, and they look fantastic. So very, very cool. I don't know how he finds the time to all these projects and all these hobbies. He's my hero.
Mine too. I mean, and he took us through the journey of him making it. It wasn't like, you know, well, here it is and it's done. No, he took out the bandsaw, the whole bit, you know?
Yeah. Even had the dogs chiming in. It was awesome.
Yeah, the dogs, yeah.
And then we also have, of course, Comic Collector. Thank you. Werewolf by lunchtime is not, he's always on his way to work. We thank you for stopping in. He hails from the great city of Perth. Roger's convinced he's in Brisbane or something. Then we got Michael Dodd saying, hey guys, hey, what's up? And let's see. We might have a few more. Mine usually lags behind. We have the Gray Man in. Welcome from another one from across the pond. Oh, and he says no work today for a werewolf by lunchtime. That's awesome. Maybe he'll eat early. Maybe he'll eat by breakfast, and he won't have any werewolf attack at lunch. So that'd be nice. Let's see. I think that's who we've got so far, and probably a few more trickling in. And of course, there's Metarog, and DS is always lurking in the shadows. So that's awesome. If you've ever seen him in person, you'd probably appreciate that. And we've got, and and this was kind of a backdoor topic that we have tonight. And I say that because I knew that Roger would enjoy it, and I would enjoy it. But it was kind of like a little bit of a poke to DS. So tonight we're going to be.
I should have read it. Let me go read it.
Oh no, it's no big deal. Tonight we're talking about promotional items and extras that come in comics. And I know at some point, as we often do, somewhere around 7:48 Eastern, we start talking about to slab or not to slab, right? So
yeah, that happens.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight in talking about these promos are how the grading companies also treat some of these promotional items, and I think they're somewhat inconsistent down the line. So let's go ahead and start off. We'll jump right in. First of all, I missed you guys last week.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry, we didn't have a chat. I was off the reservation. But I missed everybody in the chat. I missed the whole thing, the whole experience of it. I really did miss it. And around Tuesday, I started thinking I forgot to do something,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I felt all week. After we didn't do it on Monday, I was thrown off all week.
Yeah,
and,
me too. Yeah.
At one point, like on a Thursday or Friday, Mrs. DS is like, "Are you all right? You seem like you're a little exhausted or something. You okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I just didn't get my chat on Monday." And she's like, "Oh, it's okay. You're doing them next week, right?" And I said, "Yeah." So, I mean, it was noticeable.
That's awesome. I'm glad. I mean, I'm not glad that you were off, but I'm glad. Knights of Old said, didn't you guys just talk about promos? We did talk about promos. This is going to be a little bit different. So what we talked about before were more promotional comics, things that were given away as promotions. Tonight, we're going to be talking about things that were given away in comics. So, for instance, of course, Roger is going to show the same book I was going to show, but I'm sure his is a better copy. But here is a Fantastic Four 252, and this has the old tattoos in there. You all remember that. And of course, as DS has mentioned before, some people grab this book up for nefarious purposes. You want to expand on that, DS?
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it done that I know of, and I'm not sure exactly how one would do it. But and apparently, after I brought it up on a video I did about that book, a bunch of people went and, or somebody, I can't remember who, a couple people researched it and hit me back, and there's like a whole bunch of issues that have it. But inside that has the Lakeside Tattoos insert, which is most famously the part of ASM 238, the first Hobgoblin issue, and that is, a lot of times missing, or you don't get a photo of it online, and it's maybe there, it's maybe not, and sellers don't even know exactly what to show half the time. There's not a real solid knowledge base of what that is, but it's in ASM 238. I recommend everybody who's flipping Copper Age books or going to buy one of those raw or just wants to know, dig around, try to find one of those. You can find that Fantastic Four cheap. But what people have done apparently in the past, or maybe still doing it, is they'll take that insert out, I guess. I don't really want to, it's like how you break into a house. I'm not trying to encourage people to do it.
Yeah, you said, all right, Dr. Wortham. I tell you, he's got.
Don't tell him how to build the bomb there,
You've got books in your collection that teach you how to break into houses and, how to appropriately dissect, a human being from across the room. So, yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I think if somebody replaced that, you'd be able to tell, because the best way to do it would be to open the staple up and take apart the Fantastic Four, take that inserts out, then open up the ASM 238 and put that in. But it's not going to line up exactly. You might have to trim it. I think if you were really looking at it with that in mind, you'd probably be able to tell if it was fakely inserted. And other ways they'll do it is just sort of like cleverly tape it in. They'll pull it along the perforated part out of the Fantastic Four and cleverly tape it in to the ASM 238, which in photos, there's no way you would know the difference. But in the end, you should be able to tell, because that's one solid piece of paper. That's like a full wrap, basically, inside the book.
It goes from the inside there's an inside tab here on the front page, all the way aligned with the top here, right? And then you have folded, and it's stapled in and
Yeah, it's
folded
one solid
around.
piece of paper.
Yeah, it's one solid piece of paper, right? And it does have a perforation here, but obviously it would be tough to get it out otherwise. You know,
Yeah, I think if you disassembled the book, both books, and switched that over to the other book, but the staples are not perfect, and it's not going to line up perfectly. You'd have to trim it. It's definitely a sketchy thing to do. But man, if you're buying, this is why. All right, we don't have to wait till 748, Bub. If you're buying an ASM 238 online, buy a graded one with a blue label, a CGC blue label. Then you know for a fact it hasn't been messed with, because you can see photos. That doesn't mean it's just loose, arranged, sitting there. There's no way to know from a photo some stuff like that. And also, you can't really see the tattoo, you know, real good unless you shine a flashlight through it. You can't see the tattoo at all. Probably if the paper's intact, the tattoo itself is intact. But I mean, there's just too many issues with that insert. That's why I would only buy a CGC slabbed ASM 238 online. So yeah, but that's a very famous insert, and I think there was a Canadian version of ASM 238 that did not have that tattoos insert.
No, and by the way, there's another exception to that rule, which I have here. This should have a tattoos in it, but it doesn't. Do you know why? Not because somebody ripped it out.
Maybe there's a Mark Jeweler insert instead.
Yeah, DS is on the ball. There you go.
Yeah, that space, you know, that space is advertising space that a company called Lakeside Tattoos paid for. And in some of the other markets, the Mark Jeweler paid for that insert, and it wasn't available for Lakeside to pay for the advertising space on that particular run of books that they put out. And so they allotted how much those companies paid for space, and I think some Canadian ones of 238 don't have any inserts, and I think those are really rare. I've never come across one, but I'm not 100%, but I think that's the case.
Yeah. My 238 has it ripped out, so.
Oh, really?
Somebody, yeah, well, my 238 is like beat up to heck. I don't even think a press would do anything this thing any good. It's wrinkled to death, you know, it's like, you get it.
Yeah, I just sent a 238 into CGC, which I pressed myself. It came out pretty good. It's in the 9s, but I had a little trouble trying to figure out how to press it good with that insert in there without putting the line on the paper, on the cover, and on the back cover, and I did it pretty well. So I've got a 238 with an intact Lakeside at CGC right now, and I was really happy to find that. And I bought it online. It was a risk, but it was cheap, so I took a risk, and it was intact. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that back.
I think that still holds true. So if anyone out there is looking to buy one of those raw, don't wait for DS to buy it. Let him take all the risk, and then let him pay to send it to CGC, and you can pay him the $100 premium on all the risks that he took because he deserves it.
Hey, that's exactly right. You know, I don't mind taking risk. It doesn't always work out, but when it does, I expect to be compensated for it.
I think so. You know, there's a book that I picked up, which I didn't really intend to show it, but just while we're talking about it real quick, I had picked this one up this weekend, right? Bought this Saturday. And this book is a Wonder Woman 184 Adam Hughes variant, and it's, you know, a pretty fairly sought after, probably the best Adam Hughes Wonder Woman cover, right? In that run, the most expensive. Well, the problem, CGC grades this real hectically because it's a weathered, you know, faux weathered look, right? So it's artificially weathered. And so sometimes people will send this in and it'll come back a 7.5. And I'm like, what? Like, and it's a 9.8 and it'll come back a 7.5 because they just did a quick look on it. They didn't really check it very well. And it's very hard to determine if there are actually any real rubs or scratches or anything on there. So paint smudges, anything. So this book gets graded all willy-nilly. And sometimes it'll come back, you know, 8.5, a 9 something. And a lot of people anyway claim that they're sending in 9.8 copies and they're getting back low grades. So this is another one of those books that, even though it's a little bit off topic, it's another one of those books that if you really want a 9.8 of this book, my opinion is buy the 9.8, because it's not worth the risk of buying a book that you think is a 9.8 and sending it in and thinking that it's 9.8 value and getting it back as an 8.5. So that's I agree with that. I think there's certain books where you let someone else take the risk and you pay the premium to know that it's a 9.8. If that's what you really want, if that's all you want is a 9.8, then pay someone else to take the risk.
Yeah, I really like that book a lot, and I'll tell you why. Because the fact that they purposely made it look like it's a 4.5 or a 3.0 means that look, that patina, that honest wear, that they are purposefully going out of their way to make a new book look like that, means it sort of reinforces the value that a golden age that I buy in 4.0 is really good looking, and you can't get wrapped up in the defects. It has that old sort of honest wear patina, and there's something about high grade like EC Gaines file copies or Mile High books from 1940 that are 9.8 that it looks off. I know the value's through the roof, and obviously everybody would like to own a 9.8 golden age book, but there's something off about it. It doesn't look, it looks sketchy, and this book sort of reinforces that. An old book should not look brand new. It should look a little old, and they've tried to replicate that because they've recognized the cool factor to having a little honest wear on a book.
Yeah,
you know, I like books that are complete and unrestored, but I love like 4.0s and 4.5s from the golden age because they have just enough honest wear to give it character, but it doesn't hurt the value too much. The presentability is good, and that book is like sort of voting for what I feel like as a collector.
I agree with that, and I appreciate that about it too. It looks good next to my golden age books. Actually, it makes my golden age books look better, which they need all the help they can get. Sometimes it's just a stack of pages. So, so people say, "Oh man, does that book have rusty staples?" I said, "What? It had staples? They got no staples now." Well, talking about inserts too, here's another example of a book that is commonly found without the insert. So I have 2 copies of this book. This is the first book that I ever this is the only book that survived my childhood collection with me. Now, recently, my mother has unearthed a few copies of books. They might be my brother's, but we're not going to, fuss about that. So, but recently, she's brought me some more books. But to my knowledge, this was the only book that survived my collection when I was a kid. And this book has, and I have 2 copies. My original copy is missing the insert, but this book has the insert, so I'll get that pulled out real quick. Metarog style here. And I start just flipping through it. But this one came with cards inside, trading cards. And it has a Fleer, I think. No, Ultra. Yeah, Fleer Ultra. 95 Fleer Ultra X-Men cards. And there'll be 2 cards, one in each side. But usually one wasn't really a card. It was like a promotional insert or something. Sometimes you got 2 cards, but a lot of times you didn't. Be like a checklist or an advertisement. So this came with that. Now it's very easy to pull these out. And in fact, I came to at a flea market. It was a whole box of just these, where someone had pulled them out of all the comics and had a whole box of these promotional card giveaways that were found in the comics. So I'm like, man, it's a shame they weren't left in the comic. But I haven't opened these. This is the only set that I've never opened, so that's still intact. All the other ones, I pulled them out and opened them myself when I was younger, and even now when I collect ones that have that in there, if it's not an important book, a lot of times I'll pull that out too. So there's another example of free giveaways and toys and things that they kind of hide inside the books, Trying to get more people to buy them, I reckon.
Oh yeah, they're marketing, well, some of them are and some of them aren't, right? I mean, some of them are hidden inserts, like the Mark Jewelers, or they're not really buying. Back then, people are not saying, "Oh, I'm going to buy this comic because it has a Mark Jewelers." It just happened that you were in one of those bases that had military bases that had those comics, and that was why you got them.
Yeah. The novelty stuff that ends up being collectible is mostly the stuff that was not created to be collectible, and that's why it's collectible. The stuff that was designed to be collectible ends up not being as much so, and it sort of has to, it has to organically evolve into something that people recognize at some point beyond the event of it coming out, that they're like, hey, there wasn't a lot of those. This has a cool novelty, and it sort of organically becomes collectible. Like in the 90s, they did a whole bunch of stuff. They forced the collectability on it. Like polybags, this is probably the only collectible hobby where a book still in the wrapper, the polybag, is really not worth more. You're better off breaking it out of the polybag and getting it graded, and that's worth more, as opposed to like video games or toys or any number of other things unopened and still sealed in the packages be worth way more. But comic books in the polybags with the cards and everything, they're not worth more in the polybag. Or like those, what was it, Pedigree collection, those plastic things that had like 3 packs they sold in the 90s. Yeah, I had a bunch of those, and they weren't worth more unopened. So I cracked them out and sold the books individually, and I got more out of it. So it's always, it's very hard to tell at the outset of something whether it's going to be something you should grab because it'll be worth money because it's collectible. And it's sort of a good rule of thumb for me is if they're forcing a collectability issue, probably not going to end up being collectible.
Yep.
It's just something cool that's there that you see and nobody's making a thing out of it, like a Mark Jewelers insert or something. Yeah, that might end up being a gem.
Yeah, this is for you here, DS.
Oh my God!
Yeah, there you go.
The Great Liefeld here on the Avengers one, and you have an unopened card pack here for Amazing Spider-Man, and then on the back side you have the little blurb on what comics are included. Captain, another Liefeld cover, of course. Did Liefeld have stock into Pedigree or something? Because man, they really gave him a lot of shine here.
Yeah, and that's like a 3-pack, right? There's one book on the outside and one on each outside.
Only 2. It's only a 2-pack.
Yeah,
they're cool. I mean, I wish they would be worth more when they're unopened in this hobby, because then all these people who stocked up on X-Force 1, they would be worth a lot more.
Yeah. This is something unusual that even for Mark Jewelers, right? Some of them, July 1973 only, the only month, they had another insert on the inside wrap called the Menon insert. And that's it right there. And it has the Mark Jewelers in the middle, cardboard style. Actually, this is National Diamond Sales, I think. Yeah, no, it's Mark Jewelers. And then you have on the inside back cover, the rest of the wrap, which is old and heavy gold. It's like records and things like that. So that's and the Pentagon Federal Credit Union. Very, very, obviously marketed toward the military, but interesting that they actually put another wrap. When I first pick up this comic, it feels like an annual because it's so heavy. Really cool comic.
Man, I bet when that probably doesn't even have any spine ticks on it because it's so thick.
No, it is. It actually does have quite a few spine ticks on it because, it's a Metarog comic, so it was read to death,
You mean well loved?
Yeah, very well loved. Yeah. This was enraptured. Let's put it that way.
That's fair. We had let's see, we've got a few more people in the chat we should probably mention. We've got from Heroes to Icons in the house, Discovery Bay's in the house, Comic Books NYC. I think we may have seen him. Yep. We had Highly a Comic Bro has joined us. Thank you, welcome. And let's see, anybody? Mr. Gretzky's here. 9966
in the house.
Kenny's in the house. Welcome.
Kenny.
Great
free
man.
84. Free 84. Free 84. Let's all chant.
We got Shirley Tim's Fun Bunkers here as well. 2.0, that is.
Wow.
Had a lot of glitches at
great chat today, man.
Yeah, real lively. Thank you guys for joining us. We're talking about crap they put in comics to get us to buy the comic. Not necessarily the stuff that says like exciting first issue or publishers trying to get you excited about the comic. We're more talking about, giveaway stuff, kind of like the toy in the bottom of the cereal box kind of stuff. And one of the things I was going to mention too was when you were talking about the inserts. So when you bought this comic, you were trying to get the tattoo, but you weren't going to run out and buy a bunch of tattoos. So they went ahead and said, "Yeah, oh look, free tattoo inside. Buy this comic." But this one had no packaging of any kind that signified there were cards inside. You just kind of at that time you kind of knew that there was a good chance to be cards in there, but they were trying to get you not to buy the comic, but they figure you've already bought the comic. And they're trying to get you to buy more trading cards. So they're giving you a couple of trading cards free, trying to get you hooked on trading cards. So kind of like CGC gives you the first few entries free when you're, anything other than the cheapest member. So, they're trying to entice you to continue to buy. So, and then of course, the ultimate, right? So I know Roger wants to talk about that a little bit. But this is something that I find very interesting because nowhere on here does it say collect me for a Marvel value stamp.
Marvel value stamp, yeah.
But they never advertise. And I could be wrong, but I don't think that there's a single comic out there that mentions the Marvel value stamp on the outside of the comic being inside. Is that correct, Roger?
No. That's correct. It is not. It's only in the interior ads and soapboxes and letters page that they're.
Yep. And at that time, it was also there wasn't a definitive catalog telling you every book that was going to have it either, was there?
No, there was. In fact, I was one of me and a few other guys in the early '80s put together our collections, and we actually came up with a list of 1 through 100. For the Marvel value stamp for the first series, and then another batch of guys did it for the second series.
So there you go. So there's some things that people were going after these, and you can't even call that an insert because obviously, I know DS he wakes up in the middle of the night screaming, MVS. So that's the
I do. I mean, when I see somebody selling a completed Marvel value stamp booklet where somebody has cut out all the Marvel value stamps and put them and filled the booklet and has all of them, it's like a book of comic death to me. It's
well, it's more a book of comic dismemberment.
I don't know that that's like telling an antelope that a lion is a better predator than a cheetah. I don't think the antelope gives a crap if it's getting mangled from one or the other. A little consolation whether you think it's better, but
but yes, look at it this way: it's made so many 181s much more affordable than
that's
they would.
True. That's true. I mean, look, I think when
as the
years go by and we get into further decades down the road, I don't think the Hulk 181 missing a Marvel value stamp it's going to be always worth less because a complete thing is always worth more than an incomplete thing. Right. But there's not going to be this huge discrepancy of like 3-to-1 between a Hulk 181 with or without the stamp. The main thing that's really made those values separate so much and have such a huge gap is one thing, and it is the difference between the color blue and the color green, and that's it. It's always going to be a discrepancy, but those two colors being ingrained into the hobby have become bigger than just what they are, and they are like markers, and they're like gigantic billboard signs, and they trigger an emotional reaction in collectors in the hobby, and it's caused that discrepancy to widen to an insane degree. But yeah, I mean, it's not. Look, Hulk 181, the argument is it does affect the story and the art a little bit because of what's on the other side. Some of the other books, it doesn't affect the art on the. I think some of them does and some doesn't. But overall, it's sort of like an acceptable thing. It wasn't like somebody ripped a page out or something, or there's half the cover missing. I mean, it's a collectible thing that was taken out of another collectible thing, and I think. Down the road, it will all be looked at as sort of more acceptable than it is now. That's just my, view on it.
Yeah, I think for me, when I think of the value difference between the two of them, because obviously there is that, I would hope that later on it would narrow and it wouldn't be such a wide difference. But I will say this, that I think that it raises the value of a complete book as opposed to lowering the value of an incomplete book. Because I think a lot of people who are going to pick up Hulk 181 are more than willing to get whatever entry level Hulk 181 they can get, whether it had the value stamp in it or not, whether it has some defects to the cover or off-white or cream pages, even heck, even brittle pages, heaven forbid, for a book that only that age. But if that were to be the case, there's always going to be people who are willing to pay the entry level price to owning that book, regardless of the condition. And the Marvel value stamp is probably one of the better things to let go of, as opposed to a destroyed cover, right? So, but I think that because we're always talking about print runs and rarity versus scarcity, when you have a split between the two books, and you don't know, like we have no way to accurately determine how many books are still complete versus how many have had the stamp removed. And since we don't know, then that to me brings a slightly more rare edge to the book that is complete and actually raises the complete book's value, as opposed to, I know it's semantics, but as opposed to dropping the value of the lower grade book, I think it raises the value of the book that is complete. So that's all I'm saying about it.
It's a bit semantic, yeah, but I see your point. I agree with you, because that's sort of what I'm saying, I guess. I think that makes more sense than what I said, honestly. And yeah, that makes sense. Hulk 181 is a collectible book. If it's complete and doesn't have the Marvel value stamp missing, then it's worth a perfect big amount. But otherwise, it's still worth a lot because of what it is. But the value stamps, man, there's so many missing out of Hulk 181s. It's just like, hey, I have a Hulk 181. Oh, does yours have the value stamp or not? Because mine doesn't. Yeah, mine does. Oh, cool. We both have a Hulk 181. It's such a common thing. It's associated with that book so closely that down the road, there will always be a price discrepancy, but it'll be like you have one or the other, almost as if it's a variant rather than a defect. It's such a phenomenon in the current hobby with Hulk 181, that value stamp. It's such a big thing that when you're, many years down the road, when you look back at it, it's, there's two Hulk 181s. It'll almost be treated sort of like a less expensive variant than an ugly, disgusting green label defect. I'm serious.
Man.
I did.
Talk about a stigma, right? I mean, that
green label.
That green label, I mean,
hobby ever.
It's almost like people like it's almost like they if you get a green label, I wouldn't understand if you're selling your Hulk 181 without a value stamp, right? Wouldn't it make more sense to sell it raw? Because there's such a stigma behind that green label that it seemed to me you're just wasting your money getting, shipping and insurance and back and forth that you could probably make up rather than putting it raw, especially how hot that book is.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing I do. I take that stuff into account, Metarog, because when I have Golden Age books that I sell, say like a low grade pre-code horror book or something, if it's got, look, you have to take photo. I take good photos of everything I sell. So if I have a slab, I take good photos of the front, good photos of the back. And I had a book that had a nasty rip through like 3 pages, and it was like a 5-inch long tear, and it went into the pages. I mean, it was rough, but it was all there. Nothing was missing, but that tear through a couple pages went all the way into the middle of the book. I decided to slab that because when it's slabbed, it's not like pulling a fast one. You're not going to know it's there. CGC put it on the label anyway, so that plan didn't work. But if you sell that raw, you've got to take pictures of the inside, and you've got to show that tear. And then that's worse than if you just say it has a tear, but CGC gave it a 2.0 blue label. The 2.0 blue label will sell better for that book than a 2.0 raw, even if I lie and say it's a 3.0 raw. And if I have to show the interior, I have to show that tear. It's going to appear to be worse. So to slab or not to slab is sort of it depends on the defects, really. I mean, if there's a defect on the cover, slabbing, it's not going to get rid of that. But if there's defects on the interior, it will still affect the grade. But in a slab, it's sort of like out of sight, out of mind. So it really does make a big difference. If I had a Hulk 181 missing the value stamp, I would sell it raw, because it doesn't trigger that recoil from
Right.
people in the hobby
Exactly.
that, ooh, it's a green label, I'm not touching it. They'll be like, oh yeah, that book looks really good. Yeah, it's missing the moral value stamp, but it looks really nice, and then you would get a few $100 on it, I think.
Yeah, it's all a psychological really ploy when you think about it, because you see a green label, you automatically you get that that kind of just you get turned off by it because it's somebody saying it's defective. But if you sell it raw and you're honest about it and you say, well, it's complete except for the value stamp, does not affect the story, all of a sudden it softens the blow a little bit.
Yeah, and Knights of Old brought up something here about he'll take a complete green label married centerfold or cover for half off all day, any day. Yeah, look, if you have a 1027, well, it's not a good example, obviously. Some other book, ASM 4, with a married cover, if you get that graded, they're going to give it a green label, even though the book is complete. It's just got two pieces from two different books married together. But that green label still causes people to pay like half for it. It kills the value of it, even though it's a complete book. And it's the same with signatures. I don't ever try to flip books. There's people that sell raws on eBay of books that have signatures with a COA, and it's a gorgeous book, 9/8, signed by Liefeld, whatever. And I won't buy that to flip. You know why? Because I can't send it to CGC. They'll put a green label on it. And then even if I have a 9/8 white pages green label with a COA with a beautiful Liefeld signature, it's not going to sell for good money. So I don't buy those to flip just because of the green label. And it's not my personal preference. It's the market's not going to pay up for a green label, and I don't want to send it to CBCS. And then you lose money on that because the people don't want CBCS as much as they want CGC. So the color green in those two instances hurt the value of an otherwise good book.
Yeah, and I'd rather pay, top dollar for a beautiful Liefeld signature over a Liefeld cover. So I've never seen a beautiful Liefeld cover.
Well, yeah, that's true. Hey, a lot of people in the chat are kind of are talking about this. Like, I think Boy Who Had 7, they're saying, they wouldn't buy green labels.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be, I might be being a little disingenuous or something. I wouldn't buy green labels either. So I fall victim to the same emotional recoil that a lot of other collectors do. But it has to do sort of with the genre I'm in. I don't need to go for green or purple labels. But we're talking about green. I don't go for green labels. But if you're collecting, like Knights of Old is collecting high-end timelies that are rare, like early issues, it's not like you have opportunities to buy blue labels on them ever. And, you got to get what you can get when it comes up. And it's more acceptable among timely collectors to have a restored or a qualified label than it is among PCH. But I think it will become more acceptable among Hulk 181s to have a green label, just like it is for timelies. People buy timelies with green labels and purple labels left and right, high-end collectors, and doesn't bother them.
Well, Knights of Old is one of them, right? I mean,
yeah.
He says he loves green labels. So.
Well, plus you have, if you like DS said, you could always send it to CBCS and get a blue label. They don't have green labels at CBCS for restored versus non-restored. Personally, I wish that CBCS's red label, which is really pink, was not pink or red. I think it stands out like a warning sign. I hate that color.
Yeah.
I think it's horrible.
I lost money on a book. I bought this is what I was thinking. I was thinking of this book when I was just talking before about the New Mutants 87. I bought a 9.8 white pages CBCS verified signature of Liefeld on it. So it's a 9.8 white pages Liefeld's verified signature on it in a CBCS. And I bought it for I didn't even pay that much for it. I paid like half price of what a CGC 9.8 would be. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll take that. And I flipped that all day long. I ended up putting it in an auction because nobody even made an offer when I had it out there. And it sold for the same amount that I paid for it, like $5 less or something. And I'm like, yeah, I'm done with those CBCS red labels. The colors have such a stigma. When they put their red label, even though it's a verified signature, it still has this sort of subconscious no good to it because it's too close to the CGC restored label.
Yeah, and it's ugly. It's just flat out ugly. The pink is just it's hideous.
I
It's
have
taking
one
me a while to
somewhere.
get used to mine.
I
Yeah,
have
I've got
one. I got one or two of those.
I've got my House of Secrets 92 signed by Bernie Wrightson, and I like signatures. You guys know that I like signed books, but I hate that label.
Oh, I
And
was talking about the first CGC label though.
oh yeah.
The one where you couldn't read anything on it because it was so small.
Yeah, it has the
yeah.
two boxes.
Yeah.
It is all tiny.
You need a microscope to read that thing. But
Yeah, they were terrible.
Here's something I wanted to. I don't know what you guys think about this, right? But in 1976, they had DC had this gimmick in which they put this banner on top of their July and August. If it was bi-monthly, it was August. If it was monthly, it was July. And if you sent in a certain amount of these, I think like 25, you'd get a Superman belt buckle. So that it was missing to a whole bunch, because I actually sent one of those. I actually got one of those belt buckles. And so
You still
a lot
have
of my
it?
comics had this missing. I've now recovered them all, but I'm just saying that's kind of like a little promotional thing. It's not really advertised here. But if you look inside, let me see if it has it in this issue. It'll have the little.
You're talking about that top banner there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Notice there's a number there. 21. I think there were 35 different issues that had them. Shannon, solid street back end. He did a video on all of them. I don't have them all. I have a lot of them, but I don't have them all. And if you went, gosh, I don't think this one has but there's an ad in which you send in a certain amount and you get the Superman belt buckle. It was a cool belt buckle, but I lost it over the years, I'm afraid. Here it is. Right there. There you go.
The
Superman belt buckle. And look at all those issues there. Now, this was not nearly as successful as they didn't have as many cut out as the value stamp. But I have gotten a few that had these though.
Well, what do you have to cut out to send in to get that belt buckle?
Right,
that top banner.
Oh, you have to cut the top banner or make it like a semi-remembered book?
You have to cut that top banner right off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, that banner, I like that banner a million times better than the Schwinn bicycle Marvel one.
Oh, that was horrible. It took up like a quarter of the page.
Well, you add to that, you get the Schwinn bicycle banner, and then you get these monstrous miscuts at the same era, and then you have books that just look terrible, and it's such a shame that they couldn't.
It even tells you the instructions, DS, where to cut along the line. See that?
Oh yeah, nice.
And Superman is the one who's telling you. And then only these issues are acceptable.
Seems like a lot of work for a belt buckle, though. If they give a better price.
Man, I had to buy some god awful comics. I didn't like the not Brave and the Bold, the Black Hawk. I think I had to buy like a Tarzan because I didn't have enough.
Well, back in the day, they did more of that than they did these crazy crossovers to get you to buy Squirrel Girl number 69. That's what they're doing now. And I know they had some crossovers then too, but to get you to buy a book that you wouldn't have bought otherwise, so you get that Superman belt buckle is another way to get you to buy a book you wouldn't buy otherwise.
Oh. Yeah, then they restarted they've done two things recently that don't make sense to me, and I don't think anybody's doing it. And I don't know when companies are going to stop doing this digital code. Go on a computer and type in this code, and you'll never win anything. You know what I mean? They've been doing that since 1995, and nobody ever buys something because it has a code that you have to go type in and sign up for emails and junk mail and be hounded for the rest of your life online to never win the grand prize. You know what I mean? The digital codes, man, those things don't work. I don't know why anybody ever does that stuff anymore.
Well, they had this Toys R Us shopping spree too. Look how big that was. That's about as big as a Schwinn bicycle was.
Yeah, it's the same era, so that's the same space.
So ugly, and look how it drops the whole book down. It's so hideous. But talking about what you were talking about, I agree. You had these books. You had to collect all these different books, right? To clip out and save and win and all this stuff, right? Well, there for a while, Marvel was putting in the code to get the book, right? Like a digital copy of the book you were reading. So they started doing that. And then then they switched it and pissed everybody off. Instead of giving you the book you were reading, you got a digital code to some other book, like some random type book that nobody wanted, so that they could push those books like Squirrel Girl 69. So you're pushing that book really hard by giving a digital insert. So people had to peel off the digital insert, put the code in, all to find out they got the same issue of Squirrel Girl 69 they got in the last issue. So that really pissed people off, and ended up going back to giving you the book that you bought in the digital code. I think they still have digital codes, don't they? For a lot of those books, do they still include it?
I don't know. Maybe
Are
somebody
you
in the chat
asking me
knows.
and Metarog who don't buy moderns or
Yeah.
what?
Maybe Hialeah Comic Bro. He still buys modern. Maybe he'll let us know.
I know there's like the digital sticker you pull off though. A major comic company incorporating something that is going to create calls, I think, is a poor management decision.
Yeah,
That's what I think. The Marvel value stamp and the way the hobby is with grading now. If you're Marvel, you can't include something in a book that can be removed and encourage people to do that. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's a poor decision to incorporate something that is going to create a green label in today's hobby. I don't think that's a wise decision for a comic book company.
So far what I've seen as far as grading goes, talking about those stickers, if you will, so far what I've seen is the consent, and this is from the boards because I was looking it up because I had the same issue on one of my books I was thinking of sending in. And apparently CGC does check to see whether the sticker has been removed or not. I don't know exactly how that affects the grade. I don't think it gets an incomplete, but it does affect the grade. Or it's at least
it gets a qualified grade if that's
all right. So it'll get a qualified grade. There you go. But I'm also under the impression, according to the CGC boards, now this isn't official CGC talking, these are just people who send in all the time, right? And it said that that they're generic, that the covers to those are generic, the peel aways, and you can take this peel away from any other comic or even that same comic if you still have it and press it back over and it'll stick back to it and submit it and it'll come back as a blue label. It'll come back without any defect. So there's that, So that's kind of
I would hesitate to buy into that 100% though, because CGC is pretty adept most of the time at reattaching something is something that they're pretty aware of it having been done on all sorts of different things. I find it hard to believe you'll be able to pull the wool over their eyes 100% of the time by reattaching something.
I think they don't care. I think it's such a small, minute thing that it's not going to get a ton of attention when they're going through the book. If you watch some of like Reggie's talks with CGC, which is funny because it's often, to me, obviously meant to be more of a promotion for CGC than anything else. I mean, it's informative, but it's kind of obviously turned towards promoting CGC, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. God bless them. The channel's doing great, and I enjoy it. But a lot of times, the things that they say, meanwhile, everyone's giving rounds of applause. I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. And they spend less than 10 seconds grading like each book. And I just don't think that with that and that includes cover, interior, everything. And I just don't think that with that kind of rushed time that they're giving to it, that they're really kind of touching the labels to see if they're going to pry up a little easier or not. So I think that's something that they're willing to move very quickly through.
But they do restoration checks. That's got to take more than 10 seconds.
No, the whole process, 10 seconds. Less than, if they can.
I mean, I can't flip through a comic in 10 seconds.
I know. That's why they're professionals, Roger. That's why it's an art and a science.
They receive, look, I don't work for CGC. I use them because I like them. So anything I say is just based on what I think. But they receive so many books and probably, I don't know, probably 75% of the books they receive are moderns in bulk where people are trying to get 9.8s, that they're all in the 9.2 to 9.8 range. 75% of their books are probably moderns that are in the near mint to near mint plus range. And you know, I'm not going to say that it should take longer than 10 seconds, because if you have an experienced grader who's just grading near mint moderns all day, every day, you can get pretty good at something if you do it over and over and over. And how long does it take to look at something that somebody bought and didn't even open and just send it in to get a 9.8, and you have to look through it? I mean, it's pretty obvious that I don't think it takes more than 10 seconds to look at something that was pulled off the shelf and sent directly to CGC that came out last week to see if that's a 9.8. I mean, you can look and see if there's a ding that makes it a 9.6, or a little ding on the corner on 3 of the corners will make it a 9.4 or something. I don't think that takes more than 10 seconds. You don't have to look at every page of a book that came out last week, and they're getting, you know, hundreds of thousands of those a year. It's ridiculous.
Well,
so I mean, 10 seconds is fine by me on moderns.
Well, the other thing that they're doing too is you have to remember they're cutting out graders notes for higher grade books. So I think you got to have a below, like some 9.2s get graders notes. I think I've heard, and some don't.
No, I think they've switched over where they're doing graders notes on everything except 9.8s now. 9.6s are getting grader notes. This is
that? Like this month?
Huh?
You're talking about like this past month?
I'm talking about currently they are starting. I don't know if it's 100%. I don't send in a lot of moderns to get, you know, 9.8s and 9.6s to know the difference. But the last batch I had 9.6s and 9.8s in it, and all the 9.6s had graders notes, and none of the 9.8s did.
That was the last batch
moving in that direction, but I know it's probably not 100% hit rate yet on the 9.6s. But all the 9.6s I had the last time did have graders notes.
Okay.
I'm one of those ones. I don't need grader notes on a 9.8. You know, I mean, it's
no, but if you did, right?
Be a 10. I mean, it's a 10 is absolutely perfect. The best thing to do, and everybody should do this if they disagree with me, and you'll probably still disagree with me, but it's still a fun thing to do. Take a picture of a corner of one of your books in the slab that's a 9.8, and you think it's a 10 or a 9.9, and this 9.8 BS being the top, maybe it should be a 10. Take a close-up photo with your phone of one of the corners of that book, and then go open your gallery on your phone and open that picture and zoom in as far as you can, and you will see it looks like the surface of the moon. It's not flat. It's not perfect. It's nowhere near a 10. That's why they're getting 9.8s, because it's not perfect. It looks perfect to the eye, but you look at it under a magnifying glass or zoom in, you'll see that thing it's chopped up, and it's insanely destroyed looking when you zoom in.
Yeah, if you zoom into anything enough, if you look into a needle, it looks like mountains, you know, if you zoom in enough. But I think they are using
no.
I don't work there, but I think they have an eye for
tools.
They do it all the time, that you can see the difference between absolutely perfect and not quite perfect, but it is perfect as a 9.8. I don't need notes on 9.8. You know what I mean?
They pick it up, they run their thumbs over each of the sides, and they call it a day. That's it. And they thumb through it, check the page color, check to make sure it's complete, and move on. And it goes down the line. It's a very, very, very fast process. No one's going under any microscopes. No one's doing any kind of extreme checks. And then if they don't have to give you graders notes on the higher grades, then what's the difference? It is what it is, and they send it on. I think the only way to maintain integrity is to give graders notes for everything below a 10. Even if what you say is, please check the corner under a microscope and you'll see there's a dent. Okay, fine. But, and you can't copy and paste that for every 9.8. I think you can. So
how many of us have jobs where we don't have to document anything? We don't have to document and justify our work.
I know.
Very few of us. I mean, when I worked for the state, I had to document every moment of my, all the things that I did during the day. That was just the long and the short of it. And to me, if you're paying, what is it, $30 plus shipping plus insurance, I want to know what it is they saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. But people who cry the blues about this issue are not, they want theirs to be a 10, so it stands out as this super rare example among all the others. The problem is all those others are going to get 10s too. So basically, instead of a 9.8, it becomes 10, and it's the same number of them out there, and it's the same value, and it's the same deal. It's not like that person gets a 10 and nobody else does, everybody will start getting 10s, and there won't be any graders notes, and now it'll be 10, and it'll just be 10s will be the new 9.8.
No, I'm not buying that one, DS. Not at all, because I
I'm
tell
not
you,
buying it either.
when there's people who, and I'm not saying, I think we're kind of dividing into camps here, but there are some people who, well, let's look like this. Anyone's ever been to school, right? You've been, I don't care what level you finished or didn't finish, or when you dropped out and decided to just collect comic books for a living, you know, whatever your level of schooling is, you have had a teacher, professor, whatever, a nun that slapped your hand one day, and they all told you, oh, I didn't give you 100 on this paper because nobody's perfect. I didn't give you an A+ because nothing's perfect. And you're like, well, yeah, but there's nothing wrong. You didn't have any marks on this grade. You didn't strike anything out. You know, they'll say, yeah, well, nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect. So nobody gets 100. I've had professors that said that. I've had teachers who said that. And I always called BS on them too. I said, that's a bunch of baloney. If you tell me that if you have no markings on my paper, then it's 100. If you can't tell me where the mistake is, then it's 100. It's an A+. It's whatever. It's the best grade it can be until you tell me otherwise and specifically point out, because otherwise it's never going to be better. I won't know what's better. So you have to educate me and inform me if you find something wrong. Now, I've never known anybody who got a paperback blank and got a B+ and was told, sorry, you're not getting an A. And the kid was like, that's all right, I'm good with it. You know, I think everybody would want, if they're doing the work and they have something that's worthy of the better grade, you got to tell me why it's not the best. You can't say, well, it's a 98 because that's close enough to 100. Be good with it. Nobody got 100.
Yeah.
No, not listening to that. You got to give me the grade.
I don't think there should be 9.9s or 10s. I think it should top out at 9.8. Because nothing is perfect. You know, in the Renaissance and in the Middle Ages, not so much the Renaissance, but in the Middle Ages, artists would purposefully put a mistake on their painting at the end.
Yep.
So as not to be an affront to God, to say, look how, because only God is perfect. So they would do the most perfect, awesome piece of art ever, and then they would make a little mistake or something purposefully bad at the end, just so that it was a 9.8, not a 10, essentially. And really, any man-made thing is going to never be perfect. And I don't think there should be 9.9s or 10s anyway. I mean, it should just be 9.8, and then that's it. But essentially, I mean, I know people want to see 10s or why they want graders notes on 9.8s. Look, a 9.8 is a 10 in the market, essentially. You know, it's just 9.9s and 10s are sort of like a novelty when you see them, and they go for huge amounts because it's cool and they're very rare. But, you know, everybody out there who's collecting comics who wants mint books, you know, they want 9.8s with white pages. Why? Because they want almost perfect books? No, because that's a perfect book. A 9.8 with white pages is a perfect book. So, I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me. And I love getting 9.8s, and I've sent a ton of perfect books in. I've never gotten anything higher than 9.8. I've sent some in that I thought they would give me a 9.9 or a 10, and I got 9.8. So I've never gotten one, and I've sent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of perfect books in. I've never gotten a 9.8. It doesn't bother me. 9.8 is a 10 in the market, but I get why people say that. To me, it doesn't really matter. I'm fine with not having notes on a 9.8.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have an unpopular view, and you know, I don't really care, whatever. But I mean, you know, 9.8, I don't need notes on 9.8.
Honestly, we're not talking about you necessarily. It's just that to me, you know, if you're running a business and you have very little accountability, to me, that means that it could be abused. That lack of accountability could be abused. Now, I'm not saying they're doing that. Don't quote me there. I'm just saying that there is the temptation or the possibility of it being abused. Because if you don't have to document what a 9.8 is, right, then the scale can slide on you and you would not notice. They could do the grader's notes back down to 9.6. They could slide that scale down. So to me, I don't like it. It seems to me of inconsistency.
Does CBCS give notes on 9.8s? I don't use them ever, so I don't know.
I think so.
They do?
I think so.
Well, maybe somebody in the chat can say for sure if they do, but
yeah.
I mean, Roger, your argument is rock solid, and I can't. There's no chinks in that armor. I mean, if it's not perfect, they should tell us why. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. All I can say is it doesn't bother me.
The only thing I can say,
we're talking
you're
about
right. I mean,
comments ultimately.
whatever. It should say it. If it's not perfect, they should say why it's not perfect.
Right. I mean, all they got to say is, for example, I mean, they do have the grading standards, okay, which I've seen, and that is a fairly, comprehensive list of allowable defects, 1/4 of an inch of breaking, whatever it may be. So they do have a standard. So all they got to do is apply that standard and tell them, well, it's a 9.8 because it has a 1/16 of a curl or something, anything like that, and that would be justification enough. It's not like they have to write a tome, right? They just have to have some kind of justification so that we know that they looked at it, compared it to the perfection, to the paragon, and it's not that, it is right next to it. That's fine and dandy.
Well, the best way to get them to change and start doing that is overwhelming dissatisfaction in the market and competition.
Yeah, but there's a problem.
Right now, there's not either of those. So
you are their primary customer, in my opinion. So if you're not dissatisfied, they're not going to change.
Well, why am I there? What do you mean I'm their primary customer? What do you mean?
You're their primary customer because we're talking about submitting books for our personal collection in general, getting them returned back and hoping for a 9.8, or better yet, a 10, and an explanation as to why it is a 10, which is just says perfect, right? Big gold star, or a 9.8 with at least one note saying why it's not a 10. But you're more their customer because you're submitting 15 books at a time, of which you're keeping 3, and the average grade of those 3 is a 3.5 or a 4, and you're totally good with that. And all the 9.8s that you get, you don't care, and you're glad that there's not more 10s out there. You're just glad that they're not a 9.6, so you can flip them to have enough money to buy more of your 3.5 and 4s. So you're the golden customer there. I don't
know that I'm the golden customer because most of what I submit is golden age stuff, and that's the small percentage of what they grade. Most of what they grade is brand new modern stuff, and so I don't know if I'm their primary customer. But yeah, I look at it maybe a little different. Look, there was a time when I was collecting superhero books, and anything from 1980 or up, I wanted 9.8s with white pages. I never cared about 9.9s or 10s. I was looking for 9.8s on all of it. Now when I do them, I flip them, and I want 9.8s just as badly as I did before for a different reason, because I want to sell them to somebody else who's collecting the way that I used to, and they want 9.8s with white pages. So I don't know. Logically, I have no argument against what you guys are saying, that there should be notes if it's not perfect, and if it can't find anything, then it is perfect if you can't find anything wrong with it. I don't have a logically that's sound. All I know is that it doesn't bother me, and I'm fine with it, because it's sort of like that's the culture of the hobby. You guys want it to change, and yeah, if it changes, I'm cool with that too, but I don't care either way. But it will change if they get some good competition and they get enough dissatisfied customers, which means people stop sending them books and send them somewhere else, because somewhere else gives them notes for 9.8s and gives out 9.9s and 10s when it's legit, whereas CGC doesn't. And if they start losing money, they'll clean up their side of the street. But
I don't see that happening.
Pretty much doing anything they want right now, because
they're the gold standard. They've been around for what now, 20 years now, or close to it.
Yeah, 2001.
Yeah. So I mean, and this is not. I am not. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. This is not CGC in a nutshell. This is any business I'm talking about. I did a lot of business analysis when I was younger, and I went and I went to businesses and I told them, hey, this is what you're doing that you could be improving, right? And in several aspects. And that kind of stayed with me. I did that long ago, so I've forgotten a lot of the modalities there. But one of them definitely was accountability. It's key, absolutely key for you to have accountability of your employees, and of your product. Because if you don't, then again, you will. History has shown that this is the case. Then if you don't have standards, then the standards will slide down to a point where it goes into mediocrity, and then, like you said, then the people will go to another competitor, and by the time you know it, boom! Look what happened to Sears. That's a great example. gold
Yeah, you're
standard, right? They didn't. They weren't accountable. Okay, they stayed with the old patterns to the point where now they are on life support because their market has totally passed them by. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to CGC. I'm just saying that there is that possibility when you don't have all these ducks in a row.
Well, I was talking to somebody earlier today, generally about slabbing and competition, and the only thing a grading company needs to do to seriously compete with CGC is have a good case. That's it. That is the overwhelming, most important reason why people will choose CGC over all these others for the foreseeable future, is because their case is awesome. And CGCS's case is average, and PGX is average. EGS is just getting started, and his is average.
Low average.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's based on his startup cost. But whatever. I mean, CGC's cases are rock solid. They're nice. They're clear. They're good. They're awesome. And if CBCS invests the money to get a rock solid, awesome case like that, they will double the amount they're taking from CGC just based on the quality of the case. You know, there's a lot of sort of subconscious, involuntary commitment to presentation in this hobby, and a good presenting slab it carries a lot of value that's really not talked about that much. Where, yeah, we all want accurate grading, we all want good resto checks, we all want quick turnaround times, but none of that matters if you've got a kick-ass case. And that's the bottom line. If CBCS has a kick-ass case, you will see people will stop complaining so much about turnaround times. People will send more books their way. You know, it's a little superficial by us in the hobby sometimes, but presentation carries a lot of weight in this hobby, and CGC slabs present awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, I agree. I mean, that's the way society is built upon. I mean, the first impressions, the covers of the book, the outer shell, it is what society, you know, focuses on.
Yeah, look at the Newton ring debacle. I mean, how much heat does CGC catch over the Newton rings? And that's purely a presentation thing, and it only is a presentation thing at a certain angle and certain spots, and it has nothing to do with the book. And it's still a huge, huge problem.
Yeah,
and that's how big of a presentation is.
That's presentation. Yeah, that's it. You're right. 100% right. Listen, I'm surprised, you know, like some other company hasn't come out there and started grading like treasury size books. So I don't see any treasury size books graded. But
yeah, what the hell? CGC grades movie posters. You know how big those things are? They put them in a slab.
That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's got a big, huge 3-foot label across the top.
Why don't they do treasury
on the far left? And the notes on the far right, it's insanely big. It's a movie poster, and it's in a slab. But they can't do treasury size. I don't understand that either. We can't grade this. We don't have a slab. You got movie poster slab. Put it in that.
And treasuries are one, and Bub knows this, right? They're very tough to store. So if you had those in a slab, you know, you're ahead of the game because, you know, you wouldn't believe the things that I've had to put, you know, all kinds of cardboards together and plastics and you know, use my soldering iron to melt them together to get the treasury size and the correct, you know, size fitting the plastic mylar. So if I had a case for it like that, I mean, I would think people would be all about it.
Yeah, you know what else they should have? Look, all they have to do is ask their supplier to just order different dimensions of plastic, and they'll make a mold and put out different size plastic. But also, there's a lot of not a lot, but there's a market for pocket-sized volumes and digest-sized volumes and pulps, a lot of different sizes of slabs. Like, they won't grade some pulps because they don't fit in the slab. Get a new freaking slab. I mean, what are you doing? You got customers waiting to use your service, and you're grading Grateful Dead concert posters and movie posters. Like, you know what I mean? You're trying to do too much without doing all of them.
Nobody wants that crap. Grade my pulp.
They did have a Grateful Dead poster slab.
Nobody wants that.
There was a Grateful Dead poster, an original, real old Grateful Dead concert poster that was slabbed and sold on Heritage for like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they're slabbing other stuff of high value, but digest size, pulps, pocket size things, like I hate, and I don't own any of them, but I hate when I see a slab with a little pocket size thing and they sort of cut the plastic and put this little book in the middle of this big slab. With all
the mighty midget. They have the mighty midget, and it looks like a postage stamp in that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, just order some different size plastics. You know what I mean? And you just do all that before you start doing Grateful Dead posters and movie posters, and like they can't be getting a lot of posters to slab because you're gonna hang a slab on your wall. That thing's heavy. I mean, I don't know.
They grade most not just CGC, but I think they have they have sister brother companies that grade video games, action figures, records, the whole bit.
Yeah.
Money.
I think it's all about the presentation. I agree.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems is that when a new company steps into the game, though, people in this hobby, and I would assume in most hobbies where there's an investment vein of collectors who also are investors, they tend to be very pack and tribal like, and really start gravitating around companies and defending it because they're defending their investment. So, I like to call them CGC apologists. People who say Newton rings, you have a Newton ring this big around the whole book, and somebody say, that doesn't mean anything. Those don't bother me. Well, why is that? Well, because you're going to try and sell that on eBay tomorrow, and you're not going to accept returns based on Newton rings. So, and I think that that's part of it. So you get a ton of people who are so in love with CGC as a company because they butter their bread for them. And as long as that's happening, you're going to have droves of people who are willing to put down any new company or any other company very quickly, regardless of a better product that may be available, just because they don't want to hurt the investment that they've already spent. I mean, a lot of people have a ton of money tied up in CGC slabs available for sale or will be soon, and they don't want to hear, oh, well, this new company is better and everyone agrees and the market starts to push that way. That makes their investment go down. So, it's definitely going to cut into their profit margins. So I think, when we talk about a collector type company and the investor / collectors that are in our hobby, they have a lot at stake there. So you get a lot of people that will apologize all day for CGC and forgive all their faults because there's money in it.
Oh yeah. You're 100% about that. You can say that about a lot of businesses, of course.
Oh sure, yeah.
You're not going to defame the who's buttering your bread, to use your metaphor. But the long and the short of it is that at this point, right, we are discussing these issues based upon that have been talked about many times before. Presentation is key, of course, and also the other side benefits, restoration. But again, they are not like the be all end all either, because I know many people who have sent in. I could send in 2 or 3, probably dozen variants that they would have no idea what they are. Okay, I've talked to them over there, and I've told them about certain things, and they still haven't put it on the label. All right. So, they still are growing. They still are trying to figure out a lot of different things, a lot of nuances. They are now actually putting the inserts on their website there. What is that called? Where they have the grades and they have like the little notes. The census, is it?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But back in the early 2000s, we were telling them to do that. And to put the all the other inserts like the tattoos, things like that they didn't do that initially. That they kind of grow and they kind of change and modify slowly, depending on like you said, Bub, what the customer wants out of them, what they demand, and if they demand it, they will eventually implement it.
In my professional careers. In the past, and just recently, like I just finished doing this a couple months ago, even, and ended this portion of my career. But I would actually go into certain types of businesses and evaluate their books for leakage, especially is what I did most of. But basically, I'm giving a valuation to a company to determine what their 18-month value is for the next 18 months. So in doing that, every time I think of the CGC model and the you know, someone here from Heroes Icon said the buffoonish moves that they make, they reek. Like if I walked into one of these businesses and did a book evaluation on them to see the value of the company 18 months out, I would almost guarantee that they're making very, very little per slab. I would say that their profit margins per slab is minuscule, and yet, and the reason is because in order to have, they would have to have a larger profit margins in order to scale, and it would seem like their biggest problem is they refuse to scale. They like the idea of it being small, and there's probably only a small number of owners. And in order for those owners to make the kind of money that they think they deserve to make, because I come across that a lot, right? It's like somebody's like, well, how much did your business make last year? $50,000. Well, that's nothing. How much is your salary? 45, you know? So you come across that a lot too. And when you have multiple owners, especially, it gets worse. Everybody wants to make a certain amount because they're in business for themselves and they think that they deserve it, regardless of what the numbers show. But that aside, usually you're looking at very small profit margins that are hindering growth and expansion. And to me, it seems like, especially CBCS, you know, you would think that they could open up 3 more shops around the country and completely fix their turnaround time. And I know people are saying, oh, it's 6 weeks now. That's great. It was 6 months for about 6 years. So,
talk to Area 51 about that.
Yeah, exactly. So I finally got it in place. But it would seem to me that there's a growth hindrance, that they're refusing to grow. And it seems like the narrative that comes from CGC and from the CGC apologists is that, oh, well, it takes so much time to be able to groom a grader to do this. Then I think your method is poor and you don't have qualified instructors. If that's the case, you should be able to take anyone in off the street, you know, with a minimal amount of aptitude and teach them to grade a book within a reasonable amount of time. And if you're not even doing that, you know, even if it took you a year to groom a grader and under an apprenticeship program, you should be able to run out and grab 20 people today and have 20 more experienced graders next year. But they're not.
But they don't need to because there's no competition. There's nobody driving them to do that. I mean,
but there's not. It's not about the money that other people are taking from you as much as it is about the money you're leaving on the table. If you have tons of people who already want to send you their business, why are you not capitalizing on that demand? And you know, they're not capitalizing on that demand. Just we've been talking about it all night. Why don't they have smaller cases for this? And why aren't they grading these? And why aren't they doing these notes? Well, because they're trying to save time. Well, why are they trying to save time? Because they're trying to save man hours. Well, if you're getting down to man hours, why are you saving man hours? Because we don't have enough capital to hire more and to expand. So it keeps getting back down to a bottleneck, and you have to find where that bottleneck is, and you have to widen it and find out what happened. Why is it stuck there? And it seems like to me, CGC is stuck at a point where they need to expand operations, expand their catalog, and collect all the money from the people that are waiting outside to give it to them.
Yeah, but I don't think there's that many people waiting outside to give them money that are, I mean, people are using CGC now, or just, I mean, everybody's using CGC. I mean, it's not like, you know what I mean? People are using CBCS they should get signature verification, and that would steal, you know, that would be the final nail in the coffin for CBCS essentially. But there's not a whole hordes of people refusing to use CGC until they clean up their act. Everybody's using CGC. They wish it was better, but there is nothing else, nowhere else to go. And there's people that try PGX, and there's people that use CBCS. There's always going to be people that use those. But CGC is not having any real competition right now. So there's not all these people waiting in the wings for CGC to fix things so they can then send their books in. It's people are sending books to CGC, and a bunch of those people have some issues with what CGC is doing and wish things were better, but for lack of anywhere else to go, they're still using CGC. They just want it to be better. But I'm telling you, for me, what it does with the way they're running their business, they have great customer service. They have a lot of issues they could work on, and they're basically leaving the door open for some real competition to come in, and that has yet to happen because CBCS is just as inefficient at things as the complaints people have about CGC. So they don't have any real competition. So the door's open and there's no company rushing to get through that door. So
so you don't think it's a plan to have zero quality control and excellent customer service? See,
I think CGC has excellent customer service.
Yeah, CGC has excellent customer service and they have zero quality control.
They have quality control. It's not zero.
They put a label on your submission that says it's in quality control, and then you get it back, and it's got a scratch from here to here, and it looks like crap.
I've had some problems with lots of companies, and I think things could be done better. But when they're sending out, 100,000 slabs, and 0.01% of them have some issues that need to be sent back, that's not a big enough issue for them to feel like it's a crisis to address without other competition, where people who get that scratch case are like, well, screw it, I'm not using them anymore. Well, who are you going to use? Do you know what I mean? It's not perfect, and there's a lot of things that could be better about CGC. I have a lot of complaints with CGC. I email them and call them. I had complaints left and right with them, but I'm still going to send books to them, because where else am I going to send them? I'm trying to get most out of the money on books I'm flipping. I like the nice cases. I mean, there's nowhere else to go. If there was legit competition, they'd have to clean up their act in a lot of areas, but they do a really good job that could be done better. But a company there's people that work there and people that run it and people that make decisions, but a company is its own sort of organism, and it runs on one thing only, and that's profit. And the only thing is profit goes up or down. Competition is what draws profit down. That's not the case, not what's going on here. So their profits are not hurting no matter how many Newton rings they send out. It's not hurting their profits.
According to Knights of Old, they made over $100 million last year.
Yeah,
they're a monster. I mean, they are the grading company.
Cost and expense, it's got to be ridiculously high. It just seems like either they're siphoning too much cash off the top to pay executives or owners or whatever that they have in place, or they just completely don't give a crap. And like DS is saying, basically, they're only going to do as little as they have to do to maintain the customers they already have. They don't care about picking up new customers. They're only going to keep the customers they have and just keep churning out profits on a steady basis of that nature until they're forced to change by competition.
No, they change and they address things over time, but there's not a rush to do it. They work on them. It's a process. It's slow, and they address things, and down the road things get better. But it's not as quick as and efficient as it should be, because they don't have any competition pushing them to do that. So yes, they are fixing things. They are working on things. They do change.
You send out a batch of 10 books and 8 of them have a scratch in it, and those are all serial numbered. If you're running an efficient business, and I worked in manufacturing too, and we had scanned barcodes and everything for every product that went through the line. And I was in quality, and if something was tore up as often, you're saying 0.101%, it's much higher than that. And if you go, and sometimes in the same batch, you can get more than 50% of the cases with defects, or a hair inside, or a big thumbprint, or even if you're counting Newton rings, to me, that's a defect in presentation. So you go through all that. They're pumping out a ton of books with defects, and they know exactly the person, or they should, if they're running a proper facility, they should know the exact person who allowed all those books to get through. Now you're telling me it's a process and it takes time. It should take 5 minutes to call that person into your office and say, "What the hell, dude?" Maybe
they did.
8 out of 10 books go with a scratch. You do that again, we're going to scratch you. And we got plenty.
That's probably what they do.
It's not an art to quality control. We'll get somebody else in here with 2 functioning pair of eyes and get you in there and get them to work. So I think it's too much of an easy apology to say, they'll fix it. They've fixed things before and they'll fix things again. I
sent in, probably, I don't know how many total slabs I've sent to CGC in my hobby career, but it's, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, several hundred. It's probably less than 1,000. There were 4 in that one batch out of 8 that had scratches that I had to send back, and I wasn't happy about it. And I complained to them, and they fixed it. But out of all the books I've ever sent in, I've had 3 that I've had to send back in because of defects on the slab. I mean, I wish it was better, but it's not so bad that I'm going to stop using them. But yes, I think it should be better, and it easily could be better. But without any competition pushing them to do that, it's not. It's not that they don't care. They care, but there's not an urgency that competition inspires. There's a different type of urgency that competition inspires because you're now fighting for your life.
I agree, but it's the difference. It's only the difference between putting out a poor product and putting out an inferior product. And people will sit on their ass while they're putting out poor products. But once they're putting out an inferior product, meaning there's competition, then there's an urgency. But a properly running business doesn't wait for their product to become inferior. They take action while they still have a client base and keep the product at an acceptable level. That's
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I'm not going to stop using CGC. But yes, I agree.
Telling you to.
I mean, if you give me another legit option to send books, I'll try them out. But I mean, there's nothing else. So I mean, unless CGC makes it the cost of sending my books in, not the monetary cost, the overall cost of sending them my collectible books starts to outweigh the benefits of getting them graded, I'll stop using them entirely, and I just will keep raws. But I'm not going to start sending stuff to CBCS in protest of CGC horrible practices because there's nowhere else to send them, and it's still overall a 95% positive experience for me. It should be 99 to 100, honestly, but it's less than that. But it's not so much less that I'm going to send stuff to CBCS. But yeah, I agree with you, but it's, you know, it's not, it's annoying at times. That's the level I'm at. I'm annoyed with CGC at times.
Speaking of annoying, we've really gone off the rails big time today.
I blame you, Roger.
I mean, the people in the chat are saying, like, what was today's topic again? Wasn't it had this inserts or stuff in comics? And how did we get on this business analysis of CGC?
3D exotic beauties, right?
Right.
Comes with 2 sets of 3D glasses inside. And if you send this into CGC, it gets a green label because it's missing the glasses.
I'm hitting you over the head. I'm hitting you right now. But I did want to show you though that even back in the Silver Age, they did those kind of things. Look at here. You get a free pinup poster.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, that was a selling point. This is during the Vietnam War, 1967. So, you know, the kids wanted their poster of their soldiers. And it's in there.
That's not the kind of pinup posters I like. Let me show you my Barbed Wire magazine. It's got a pinup poster in there too. It's fantastic.
I try to shy away from those because I want to stay married. So, you know.
I hate that for you.
Yeah, the only book I have with insert, I think, is that Fantastic Four that we talked about in the beginning that Bub has a copy of. I've got some 3D ones, but I have the glasses. They're not attached. And I'll just throw it out there. If you send that to CGC with the glasses, they will not grade the glasses. They will return them separately and still give a qualified label, even though you have the glasses. And if you tape them back in, that won't even count.
I have a challenge.
What new manner of buffoonery is this?
I have a challenge for us one of these weeks. Let's see if we can go through the whole chat without mentioning those 3 letters altogether. No C, no G, no C in that sequence. Let's see if we can do that for a whole chat.
All right, I guess. That's like saying we're going to do a DC only chat, though. It'll get no views. Like every time, I do, like it's always because I always think of James over in England, right, or the UK. Think of JPL Flash, right? So like every time I do a DC haul and I put DC comic haul, it gets approximately 1/3 of the views of my regular comic hauls.
Really?
A lot of people are just like, what, DC? No thanks. If I put Golden Age comic haul, can't even get DS to watch it because he's like, you might as well have put low grade before that. I'm not watching that. That might hurt my eyes. I can't look at that.
That's interesting. You know, I have to check my analytics to see, but I don't think I've ever put a company before. But that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I think the two biggest clickbaits that for me that I've noticed is number 1, CGC unboxing. You put that in the title, instantly 100 views. If the second biggest one is comic book haul, if you put comic book haul in the title, tons of views.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't have a whole range of topics or titles or clickbait. I don't really go for that stuff. I just noticed if I put CGC unboxing or comic book haul, I get tons of views, more than everything else.
One way to make sure that I don't watch one of your videos, not you specifically, DS, I mean anybody, is to put a question mark at the end of the title. If there's a question mark at the end of the title, I almost will not. I refuse pretty much to watch that. Like
just got my grails back. What grade did I get?
Yeah, what grade did I get? What did I get in the mail? Oh my gosh, who am I? You know, like no, I'm out. That's too clickbaity for me. Even
all right, the next video
like,
I make, I'm going to put a question mark in it and see if you can resist watching it.
I might watch it, but I won't comment because you'll never know I watched it.
I'll put CGC unboxing. Will Bub watch this? Question mark.
Well, that's cheating because if you put my name in there, it'll get double the views. No, it won't.
Or half of them.
Yeah, about half. I'll just keep watching it over and over again to make sure.
Yeah, it'll be Bub times infinity, but everything else it'll be minimal.
All right, well, I hear Mrs. DS came back in, so I'm gonna get off here and make her happy.
I gotta get going too.
Yeah, all right, guys. Well,
the dog's got to park.
Thank you. Yes, he's parking the dog, and Roger's got something to do too. We will talk to you guys soon. No Face Comic back from a 1-week hiatus. Well, yes. I want to thank, as with me as always, Roger, Metarog. Say thank you and goodbye.
Greetings, everyone. We forgot to do that at the beginning. And be back and be blessed.
Yes, be back and be blessed, or be blessed and be back. I don't remember which one it is. And DS Comics, go ahead and say your ever enthusiastic goodbyes.
Bye, everyone. Everyone do your homework, and we'll see you again next week. And tune into Golden Age or Golden Guys tomorrow night. I'll be on that.
We're all punchy at this hour.
Yeah, Golden Age, guys. Be back and be blessed. And this is BUB'S Comics saying slab a comic. Read a slab. Read the grader's notes if it's a 9.2. Anyway, I gotta go. Talk to you all later, and we'll catch you next week on No Face Comic Chat.
Awesome chat, guys. Awesome.
Good night.
Terrible us. Great chat room.
Yeah.